All right, I'm back with Donnie Gilbert. Donnie, we were talking about length of haul last time that we left. Let's pick it up there.
So you can go in, you can break OTRI down by drive-in, break it down by reefer, break it down by market. Well, you can also break down our outbound tender rejection rate index down by length of haul. So before you get out and jumping out and dropping these rates because you see market averages dropping down, you might want to jump in and start looking at what kind of loads you're running versus the average type of length of hauls that you're running to make sure and see what those are doing in the markets. So here I brought up outbound tender rejection rate that's in the blue line. So this is our market average here for the US. It trended down to 21.45%. But here in the green line down here, I have our COTRI, a city or local. And these are loads that stay within 100 miles of the origin. And you can see here, they're about 8.48%. Not a lot of volatility. When things do tighten up, they can charge a little bit more, but most of the time when you're out booking these local loads, it's pretty much the same rate almost all year round, unless the market's extremely tight. So rejection rates on the local loads stay fairly low, 7 to 10% normally in that range, and you never really see them jumping that high. Next is our SOTRI. Those are short haul. Those are loads that run for about 100 miles to 250 miles from the origin. And so we have it broken down in that band. That's a company that they can send their trucks out and only get them back within 1 day. They can run out 200 miles, deliver and be back in the market within 1 day. And so we look at those, and it's a little bit higher. It's 16.44%. These are still some of your local companies running them out. On my next chart here, I'll be looking at, and I've got it broken down to mid-haul, tweener, and long haul. I want to jump through these fairly quickly. Mid-haul, 250 to 450 mile runs. These are like your regional runs. You can see here that they're jumping up now to 26.20%. These are a lot more of your OTR type loads. Tweener, I'm going to skip for right now. We'll get that to in just a second, and I'm going to jump to long haul. Long haul is 800 miles plus, and those are obviously the ones that are crossing the country. Especially those OTR drivers love those. So, and you can see here, those are at 22.33%. Those are more sought after. Therefore, rejection rates are a little bit older. But I want to jump in and talk about the tweener haul, Andrew, and what's important about that. Tweener hauls are important because it's almost a key indicator of what's going on in a market. And the reason why is because those are those 450 to 800 mile runs. Before ELDs were enforced, you had a lot of guys that were picking up in the early afternoon, late morning, and delivering the next morning 700 miles, and doing it again, 700 miles a day. Enforced ELDs, you can't do that anymore. We're now tracking those trucks by hours of service. So what that has done is now it takes probably 2 breaks to deliver those loads, and it makes the lane really inefficient. So looking at that now is those lanes being very inefficient. Trucking carriers are going to reject those lanes first if they have other options.
Right.
So when you look at a lane here, go in and check out what's going on with the tweener load. If you see those rejection rates are higher than the lanes, it's because they're going to accept the long hauls. They're going to accept the mid hauls if they have other options before they accept those tweener haul loads. So when you see it elevated, they have a lot of options. When you look at a market and you see it very low, you know that their options are limited. So you may not, you see a market with very low tweener haul, understand there may not be a lot of options for carriers in those markets because they don't have the option of getting the mid hauls or the long hauls, so they're having to accept those tweeners. They're being forced to, and therefore using that one index, you can kind of gauge what kind of optionalities carriers are having in each market.
Right. Is there any way to look at this as above or below the outbound tender rejection average, or is there any way to look at that, or how do you?
I like to compare it to the average of what's going on. So that's why I've got outbound tender rejection rates brought up here in blue again, and then my mid haul in yellow, tweener haul in green, and long haul in red. So sure, I would bring up the market and I'd compare it to the market average and see, is it well above the average or is it below the average?
Very insightful. Thank you so much, Donnie.